Are you thinking about moving to Westwood, Massachusetts? I have lived in this area my whole life, and actually, I live in Milton, which is just one town away from Westwood. I get a lot of questions about living in Westwood because it's such an attractive place for people to live right now. So you have come to the right video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about everything you need to know before living or thinking about moving to Westwood, Massachusetts. Whether you're relocating for work, looking for more space, or exploring other options, I'll go through everything you may need to know. Hope you enjoy. Hey, I'm Katie, and I'm a real estate agent in Massachusetts. This channel is all about helping you with your move to the South Shore of Boston. Subscribe if you haven't, and if you're thinking about moving to this area, give me a call. I would love to help in any way, and I, of course, especially love helping all my YouTube buyers. People may think it's strange just to pick up the phone and call me from a YouTube video, but I've had a ton of people call, some with just questions, some with real serious move timelines. So I've been able to navigate both. In fact, just yesterday, I successfully closed on a house in Hanover for a lovely family who lives in Arizona, but they raised their daughter in Boston, and they decided they wanted their grandson now to also be raised in Boston. So it's a multi-generational family. They found me on YouTube. Our first conversation they had when they called me, they actually asked if we could FaceTime because they just wanted to see me. I think they had gotten so used to seeing me talk rather than just hear my voice. So it was pretty funny. I jumped on FaceTime with them, and from there, the rest is history. At a high level, people are very attracted to Westwood for a few different things. It's a beautiful suburb that has great access into the city. It has a lot to offer nearby, and the school system is very strong. I do have to note that there is a higher cost of living and a more expensive real estate in Westwood. So that's just a high-level overview of what you're going to get if you move to Westwood. As usual, later in the video, I'll be doing some comparisons of the median real estate in the different towns around Westwood. For example, Milton is right nearby, Dedham is right nearby. All three are great towns, but for very different reasons. As you probably know from my videos, I actually live in Milton. And when my family was thinking about moving closer to Boston, so when we lived in Cohasset, our lifestyle started to change. We had bought our house on Nantucket. My 3 kids were going to be going to school in Boston, and my husband was working full-time in New York City. If you know anything about Cohasset, as I've talked about, it's a wonderful beach community, but that means it's a little further removed from Boston and New York City. So in order for us to have a more convenient lifestyle, more convenient family lifestyle, Jim and I made the decision to move closer to Boston. While we were doing that, one of the towns that came up that we really loved was Westwood. We didn't have any family connections to Westwood, but we just really loved the community vibe and the surrounding towns, the retail, the restaurants, because there is actually an Amtrak station located right off the highway in Westwood, Route 128. We knew that that would be super convenient for him to get to and from New York City as quick as possible. And we also knew that the kids could get in and out of Boston to go to BC High, and I could get in and out to go see their sports things. So Westwood was like a really great community. Lucky for us, we had a lot of family connections in Milton, and we found our beautiful dream home in Milton, and it was only 6 minutes from that Route 128 station. So you can see how close Milton and Westwood really are. So to get into specifics, Westwood is just 30 minutes away from Boston by train. In all of my videos, I talk a lot about the South Shore and the Red Line, which is the fastest train system to get from the South Shore into Boston. When you move over towards Milton, Westwood, Canton, Dedham, these areas, actually the fastest way is going to be the commuter rail. One amazing thing about Westwood is it offers great outdoor activities for your day-to-day. So for example, Hale Reservation is a 12,000 acre property that's in between Westwood and Dover. They have a lot of different programs for the kids. For example, summer camps, and then a lot of different programs that integrate these kids into different nature opportunities. And just on a personal note, one thing that I think about Westwood is it's just so very well kept. There's such pride in community. So if you're just walking down the sidewalk with your family, it is spotless. It is clean, and people are just smiling and enjoying just being around other people. So there's just, again, you may not know the people you're walking towards, but you're certainly going to say hi to them. So let's talk about the school system in Westwood. I get very excited about this. This public school system for this beautiful suburban town is ranked A+ by niche.com. You just can't get better than that. But as I always say, if public school isn't for you, again, because we're in Boston and you're in Westwood, in one of the suburbs of Boston, you are going to have access to some of the best private schools in the area. I go back to that little bit higher of a real estate price point for Westwood. And the reason is the school systems, the access to Boston. These things really do matter when we're looking at real estate. A lot of times people will send me less expensive real estate options when their high focus is a town that they really want to live in. And then they'll look next door and they'll see a lower price point. But you really have to look at the overall town and understand that the market is efficient. There is a reason that that price point is in that suburb of Boston. So if we're talking about the job market, and if you're moving or relocating because you want access to Boston jobs, the access from Westwood into Boston is so easy. There's highway access and there's train access. And both at different times of the day are going to be more difficult than others. This is Boston after all. But you just get used to it. You get used to what time you should drive into the city and what time you should drive out of the city. And now with remote working, it really does make it a lot easier. So if you buy a house in Westwood, your neighbors are going to be in the tech space, in the academia space, they're going to be in the hospital space. These are people that are going to have direct access into those Boston job opportunities. And if you're having any confusion about where Westwood is located and access to Boston, it might be easier for you to just give me a call and I can explain it with any relocation. This is a really important part. You want to get it right. So now let's talk about retail. My favorite thing. So basically the way I've talked about Route 128 being the train station, what happened in that area is once they realized that they were going to be having commuters from New York City, from Washington, D.C., from Boston, all coming through this space, little by little, it grew. So Route 128 Westwood Station is now an enormous shopping plaza. Not as enormous as Dedham's Legacy Place, if you watched my Dedham video. That's completely separate. The thing about the 128 station is it's going to have very practical shopping. So we've got a Wegmans for all those upstate New York people. I guess Wegmans was founded in upstate New York. And let me tell you, my sister-in-law has never been as excited as when Wegmans was coming to Westwood because she lives in Milton. And so it was a quick shopping trip to her favorite childhood supermarket. I can't go into Wegmans. It's enormous. And I have fear of huge supermarkets. So I tend to shop at the fruit center, but we can talk about that later. We have a Target, we have a Home Goods, we have a Home Sense, we have a TJ Maxx, we have a David's Bridal, we have a Michael's, we have a Petco, and so on and so forth. So do you see the theme? They're larger, Ulta, Sephora, these type of stores. So when we're thinking about Route 128, we're thinking about more of the mega brands than the little suburban retail stores. We love it because there's also a couple restaurants over there. For my kids, there's a Chipotle, there's a Five Guys. For my husband, there's an Anthony's coal-fired pizza. And for me, there's a Del Frisco's. So we are all happy in going to Route 128 Westwood Station. In fact, sometimes on a Friday night when my husband is coming home from New York, I'll just say to him, I'll just pick you up at the train station. Let's just grab dinner at Route 128. So we don't even need to go into Boston, but we feel like we're having a date night in that little scenario. So I highly recommend this if you're thinking about moving to Westwood as your go-to restaurant and retail space. So in other words, if you're looking for that upscale boutique shopping, you may have to pop into other cities. But let me tell you, you are just about 20 minutes from Wellesley. They have the most incredible, unique boutique stores. Milton has a couple of unique boutique stores. Head down to Hingham. Your access is very centrally located when you're in Westwood. And as always, you can shoot into Boston really quickly and get any store you need. I mean, literally Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Valentino, anything at all. Dick's Sporting Goods. You can do anything. If you're just looking for some of those other big box stores that you're not going to find in 128, like a Costco, a Land's End, an LL Bean, things like that, you can head right over to Legacy Place. You're about 10 minutes. Now let's talk about the real estate market in Westwood, Massachusetts. As always, I highlight a few different towns to show you the difference in the median price point. And so today I did a few extras because what I want to show you is I talk a lot about Boston and the South Shore. Metro West would be just to the, obviously, the west of Boston. So that's like taking the Pike out. And that's where you're going to find towns like Weston, Wayland, Dover, and then Westwood is just going to be south of that. And so Westwood then is going to be west of Milton and again, west of the South Shore. So it's just kind of like the way I'm trying to position it. So the reason that I think that Westwood becomes an attractive suburb town of Boston is because you've kind of got that in between of the Westons and the Wellesleys. And then you've got Dedham, Milton. And then if you're going all the way to the South Shore, that's a really different lifestyle than Westwood. Westwood is almost going to fall into that Weston, Wellesley, Milton, Dedham, Canton lifestyle. Okay, so I've talked a lot, but let me give you some specific context. Over on the Metro West side of Boston, you're going to have those towns like Wellesley and Dover. Last month, the average Wellesley home price was $2 million. And Dover was almost $1.8 million. So compared to those, Westwood feels like a bargain at $1.2 million. So it really just depends on what you're looking for. I'm just trying to give you an idea that Westwood is not the most expensive suburb of Boston. It's also definitely not the least expensive suburb of Boston. Neighboring Dedham is going to be an average home price of $771,000. And Milton, where I live, is an average of just about 1.1 at coming in at 1.08. So listen, it really just depends on what you're looking for. This is why I say, please give me a call. I'll talk through all these things with you. We can have these conversations in person because it's easy for me to give you a high level about what's going on. But the truth is, I really need to hear some emotion and some background on the story. Just yesterday, I got an email from somebody who found me on YouTube. They're moving from Austin, Texas. They want to come here to the South Shore. She basically texted me to say, hey, I love your videos. I love your knowledge of the South Shore. Can we talk? I immediately said, of course. Do me a favor, send me an email and just give me a high level of who you are. Very simply, I now know that it's her and her husband. She grew up in the Boston area. He grew up in Texas. They met in college. Her parents live right down the road from them in Austin because they have their only grandchild is in Austin, Texas. It's time for everybody to move back home. So what they're looking for is a multi-generational home. That could be an in-law suite in a suburb. It could just be a really large house with 2 primary bedrooms. Each thing is going to be very different. And what I like to do is have that conversation with you. And then we go and we explore a lot of different options on email, over Zillow, over any off-market properties that I can think of. And then I start to see what you're really looking for. Because listen, it's easy for everybody to write down on paper what they're looking for, think that that's what they want out of a house. But at some point, we need to see what the emotion is and how you feel about the house. So once a lot of the boxes are checked, then we can see like where you really want to land. I always compare Zillow and all these online listings to a dating app. Listen, these pictures can look amazing online. And look, wow, it's an inexpensive house in a great suburb. But let's be honest, let me drive by the neighborhood. Let me see the location. Let me film what the vibe is and let me send it to you. And you'll see that just like a dating app, not everything is perfect on Zillow. You really need somebody boots on the ground helping you to see what you're looking for. So if you're thinking about moving to Westwood or any of the surrounding areas, please give me a call. So as you can see in this chart, the homes in Westwood have consistently increased in value in recent years. And there's no reason to think that that won't continue. What I haven't mentioned yet is this might be one of the best values in real estate right now that you can get in the suburbs of Boston, which is why if you look at days on market for some of these listings, they move fast. So again, that goes back to we really need to be educated ahead of when we're ready to make our move. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one.